Hey, big day, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here investigating your favorite college. And today is June 9th, 2021. It is a huge day for me, not only actually only because I am going to be making my first short film ever since 2018. Finally. So that's pretty crazy. But anyways, I'm not going to be talking about that in this video. I'm going to try my best to talk about the cultural anthropology course that I just took in college. And yeah, I have never made an entire video focusing on my college before, so this is really new. And the reason being is that I have never in my entire life taken a course or learned something this interesting in an educational institution. This has got to be the most interesting thing I've ever learned in any education institution. Oh my god, this is so damn interesting. But at the same time, this is also a lot. Originally, I write notes on a notebook with a pen with my hand, but I kind of gave up after I learned that there's just so much to write down in anthropology course. So I changed from using a notebook to using Microsoft Word, like an average college guy. And the Word file, this notebook, turns out to be 133 pages. And I'm going to try to go over the whole thing today. And also, anthropology is one of the relatively more difficult subjects I've ever came across in college. So I'm actually going to do revision this time. For the first time in the history of my college days, I'm going to actually do revision. Alright, so Anthropology 2, Cultural Anthropology. There are two textbooks. CC is Culture Counts, and YO is an ethnographic record of Yanomami. And there are also lectures and articles and videos and other stuff that's also inside the syllabus. So we have the table of contents. This is briefly what we're going to go through in this video. Oh my god, I know. But anyways, of course, we have to start off by introducing what is anthropology. Anthropology is a holistic study of humanity. There are two kinds of anthropology, physical and cultural. And physical is more like biology related, like study of the human body, facial structures, DNA, how people change and evolve, races, And then cultural anthropology. And inside cultural anthropology, we have sociocultural anthropology, ethnology, which are pretty similar, except one is more humane, one is more scientific. We have ethnography, which is a study of a specific culture, with archaeology, linguistic, and applied anthropology, which is the most problematic one, because essentially you're trying to change culture with applied anthropology. What is culture? A culture is a set of traits that is shared, learned, passed on, both symbolic and systematic. I need to turn on air conditioner. It tells us what's the right thing to do, blah, 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 blah. We have norms. Norms is considered normal behavior. Yeah. I'm recording, right? The whole video is just going to be me talking and scrolling through a Word file that I spent so long perfecting. Ethnocentrism is a bad thing. It's like racism, but a more specific kind. Essentially, the idea that you think your own culture is better than others. When you enter a course like anthropology, it is really important to keep in mind that you need to respect all cultures equally, and that is the idea that is cultural relativism. Yes, cultural relativism. Worldview, emic, and etic. There are lots of scientific terms like phonemic, phonetic, and emic is a point of view from within the culture, and etic is the scientific point of view. So very objective point of view. And my professor got his anthropology PhD, and he did some field work on St. Vincent, an island in the country known as St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the Caribbeans. So this is It's not part of the syllabus. I just wrote them down because why not? Okay, and then we have the textbook version of what is anthropology. We have what is society, forensic anthropology, race, and then now we have lectures on anthropological theories. We have cultural evolution, cultural relativity, functionalism, structuralism. I'm just going to say these things because I don't want to dwell on these things. It's boring. We have two approaches. There are two approaches to everything, and there are two approaches to anthropology. One is the materialist, aka universalist, aka modernist, aka positivist. Essentially, it's a more scientific and traditional way of studying anthropology. It's science. And then we have the postmodernists, which are more humanistic. Chapter 2 on the textbook, we have culture. Culture is made up of learned behaviors, all involve classification systems and symbols, patterned, integrated, shared, adaptive, subject to change. And then we have a lecture on science, scientific method. We all know what is a scientific method. If you've been to school, you've heard this a million times already. Parsimony. The simplest answer is the best answer. Like, if you pray to God to relieve your headache and your headache is relieved, you may think that, okay, God is the reason why your headache is gone. But if you've also taken aspirin pills and your headache is relieved, it is more believable that aspirin cure headaches and not God. Not to dismiss the religion, but this is a kind of parsimony. The simplest answer is the best answer. Field work. To get a PhD, you have to do field work. So your anthropology PhD might be one of the hardest things to get ever because you need to study a lot for 11 years. And you need to do field work, and that costs. And doing field work, we got ethnographic database, we have interviewees and all that. And then here comes a very popular and a very well-known case of fieldwork in the world of anthropology, and that is doing fieldwork among the Yanomami, which is an Amazonian tribe near North Brazil and South Venezuela. And basically the writer of the book, Chagnon or Chagnon, basically details his experience, day one, the culture shock, and introducing the main people that he learned. Kaobawa is the leader of a village called Bisasiteri, and he's a very nice guy. And then we have Bawa, and then we have genealogy, collecting, all that stuff. Okay, let's move on to one of the most interesting parts, and we are already immediately in the interesting stuff. We have communication, aka language, and if you're a language fan, you're gonna really love this one. Language, we have phonology, which is study of speech sounds. Morphology, we study a form of words. Syntax, where words go together to make sentences. And lexicon, that is literally the lecture, by the way. So aside from the lecture, I went ahead and basically copied the entire IPA, 2020 version of the IPA on my notebook, full page. As you can see, the consonants, the vowels, and all the diacritics. I don't even know how to pronounce some of those sounds. Lots of clicks as well. I don't know, leave me alone. Social linguistics, emic, edic. We have the whole language determines experience thing, which is called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. This is pretty interesting because I speak two languages on a C2 level. I speak Cantonese and English. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm C2 at English, but probably, given that my entire YouTube channel is in English and I can just speak whatever I want anytime I want, pretty efficiently and in a fast pace. But when I speak in Cantonese and English, the world is the same for me, so Noun classes. Now I would add a lot of bits, this and that, extra stuff on my notebook, like English noun classes, and then there are Cantonese noun classes, which are pretty much the same thing as units, but these are also kind of like noun classes in Cantonese. Like, you can use the same noun class for cat versus the noun class for an apple, because an apple is dead, but a cat is alive. It's moving, it's animate, and you can use the same noun class. But at the same time, you kind of can, but in very special occasions. Alright, monkey photo, gotta love it. And we have the communication chapter of my textbook. Here we learn a little bit more about animals which are not humans, their language systems, nonverbal communication, artifacts, haptics, chronemics, proxemics, kinesics, and also how language is used in socially stratified societies, which I will go over a little bit later. But there's usually high-class accent and low-class accent, and high-class vocab and low-class vocab, like how in New York, usually people who are poorer would not say in er or ar, like faster. But rich people will. So language change here is a bit of a Old English, great vowel shift in English. Comparative linguistics, really interesting stuff. Here is how languages change geographically, and then of course I put the whole PIE flowchart here. And that's not enough, because my language is not in the PIE, so I gotta put Proto-Sino-Tibetan, the whole flowchart here, the whole damn flowchart. And then we have cultural ecology of the Yanomami, the trails, the traveling, the technology, hallucinogenic drugs, which is a huge part, shelter. This whole circle thing is actually a super huge shared shelter, and that is called a shabono. Hunting, gathering, gardening. This is a grueling chapter to go through. I spent so many days over this chapter, and I remember studying this on my laptop, reading the textbook on my laptop in my mom's friend's place, and it's just so frustrating because it's just so long. But vegetable foods, we go over the foods like the monkeys, pigs, alligators. They don't eat jaguars because they're scary. Anteaters, and we got vegetable foods like plantains, nuts, tubers, stuff like that. Slash and burn. And then we still have more settlement patterns like micro movements, macro movements, how they fission, how they concentrate, but mostly fission. There are mountains, river basins. Where do they usually live in? There's a great protein debate, and I also began to learn that vegetables they don't walk or run or anything, so they actually come from one place. That is why before the 1500s, the entire world outside of South America has no idea what is a potato until potatoes are discovered by Europeans, discovered in South America, and they're brought to the rest of the world. But before that point, potatoes are an exclusively South American thing. So damn, boy. Next up, we have the most important chapter, that is subsistence, and it's basically survival and maintaining and supporting oneself, and it includes many things like clothes and shelter and medicine and technology, but we're going to focus on food because food is most important. So there are 4 types of subsistence technology. Here I have 5, but actually it's 4. Hunting gathering, that's the lowest tier, low tier. Pastoralism / horticulturalists. Intensive agriculture and industrialism. Hunting gathering is basically you hunt food, you eat them, yay. Horticulture is where you get farms. You farm. You're farming. And at the same time, you also herd some animals for food, pigs, sheep, cows, whatever. So hunter-gatherers, a good example would be the Inuits. I mean, how can they farm on snow? They can't farm on snow. So all they can do is to hunt like walruses and stuff. And horticulturalists, pastoralists like in places like in Tibet, Xinjiang, where they're on mountains, and they just herd some camels, and especially in Central Asia, where they herd camels, and they have camel milk, which is apparently super sour. Not camel milk. What milk is that? Sheep milk? I forgot. Intensive agriculture is essentially farming, but with a lot of technology, and then we have industrialism. And this is a very important tier list because a lot of concepts like political organization and religion and economy is going to be tied into this as well. But yeah, main source of calories in hunter-gathering societies, it's pretty much everything. Pastoralism, usually dairy. They don't try to eat meat because cows and pigs and animals, they're valuable. They're like money. So you don't eat your own money. So they make milk and make stuff out of milk, like curds, yogurts. Intensive agriculture, grain, industrialism, grain or rice, grain and rice. Pretty much something. I mean, we also eat meat and vegetable, but you know, the basis of everything is grain and rice. All right. So yeah, as you can see, there's the tier list in action: relative level of health, relative amount of work, relative of amount of land per person. They all change quite differently from one tier to another. The healthiest is actually hunter-gathering societies, and the least healthy is industrialism, which is where we are right now. And it's least healthy because it's the most stressful kind of subsistence technology and form of civilization. But particularly the horticulturalist society has a lot of warfare because you get a surplus of food and people are like, damn, I want your food. Let's fight. Let's raid. All right, we have the chapter 5 of the textbook, Early Human Migration. Like, oh my god, there's just so much to cover. Let's go over this. Foraging. Here are some examples of all kinds of subsistence technologies. Part 4, economy. Let's go. So again, subsistence technology. HG is hunt and gathering, and land tenure is how the rights to the use of land are held. So in HG is by use. Like I need to live in here because why not? Horticulturalists usually live together by family groups. In an intensive agriculture society, it's usually by individual ownership. Like, I bought this land, it's mine now. You can't trespass unless I allow you to, and it's basically the same nowadays. For production, we have division of labor. We have simple and complex. Simple division of labor is, of course, in HG and Horty societies, Horty. And a complex is intensive agriculture, IA, or industrialism. For exchange, normally it's just reciprocity. Like, I hunt some food, some game, and I share to everyone equally. And then we have balanced reciprocity, where there's more stuff. I realized that I could go on. This video could be 12 hours long. I'm speaking at such a slow pace, but yeah, balanced reciprocity, negative reciprocity, redistribution, which is basically called taxes, but generally it's called redistribution, where some goods flow into a central authority and then out again, which is pretty egalitarian. But yeah, usually in intensive agriculture societies this happens. When there are too many people, this happens. And then when there are so many, like extremely a lot of people, you need market exchange, where instead of saying, oh, I want this ice cream. In order to buy this ice cream, I'm going to trade a car, like a car part for an ice cream, horse for a car part, dress for a horse. Like, that's annoying. So money is invented, so there's that. Consumption. Here are some coins, some extra stuff. Coins, Chinese coins, Roman coins, whatever. Economic behavior. more stuff, videos. We learned about the Cobra Gypsies and the Thoe tribe in the Amazonians, which is comparable to the Yanomamurs. Part 5. Here comes the a bit of a boring dip in the course. We have sex and gender. I'm going to go over this super quick. Sex and gender, and the Chambri, Mundugumor, and Arapesh societies in Papua New Guinea studied. We have sexually permissive societies, sexually restrictive societies, and apparently sexually restrictive societies are more violent, supposedly. The controls of sexual access, taboos, incest taboo, postpartum sex taboo, virginity, marriage, and then the book stuff. Okay, let's go over this. Gender relations in an HG society, in a Horty society, in an IA society. We have gender hierarchies in wealthy nations. And then we have marriage, family, and kinship. Marriage, we have, this is so many lectures. We have combination of spouses. There's polygyny. Monogamy is basically two people in a marriage. We have serial monogamy. And then this is where it gets complicated. We have polygamy, where there are at least 3 people in a marriage, aka having at least 2 spouses. We have polygyny, which is one man having at least 2 women. And then we have the opposite of that called polyandry, which is one woman having at least 2 men. And then we have sororal polygyny, which is one man marries at least 2 sisters. We have group marriage. And then we even have exogamy, endogamy, arranged marriage, levirate, sororate. So levirate is basically a man is expected to marry his dead brother's wife, / a woman is expected to marry her dead husband's brother, not wife. I don't know why I said wife right here. It's wrong. Sororate is basically a woman is expected to marry her dead sister's husband. A man is expected to marry his dead wife's sister. It's complicated, I know. Marriage exchange. Bride wealth. Bride service. You know, if you want to marry someone, you need to also work for that person's family for a little bit. Because, you know, it's like, I'm taking a woman from you, so in return I help you, basically. Dowry, postmarital residence patterns, patriarchality, matriarchality, and bilocality, avunculocality, where after marriage, the couple lives in the husband's mother's brother's house and family, which is really specific, but okay. We have neolocality. And this is the relationship map for avunculocality. Kinship and descent. Kinship, descent groups, clan. I'm just going to go over them. Kinship terms, right? This is the English kinship terms and Cantonese kinship terms. I prefer the Cantonese kinship terms because in English kinship terms, everything on the maternal side and paternal side are basically the same. So maternal cousins, paternal cousins, also called cousins. Which is a little bit annoying when I say cousin. I don't know which one are you talking about. But in Cantonese or in Chinese and in many other languages, there is actually a difference. So that you know if it's on the mom's side or on the dad's side. Types of descent. Unilineal descent, double descent, and bilineal descent, bilateral descent. There's a difference between double descent and bilateral descent. Very confusing, but there's a difference. Double descent is both parents' lines, but for different reasons on each side. Bilateral descent is equally. So it's a little bit different. We have the book version of that. Marriage, family, kinship. Yeah, and then we have the most interesting chapter in the ethnography, myths and cosmos, which I will not go over. There are 4 layers of the world, and not all cultures in the world has this heaven-hell dichotomy. There are 4 layers of the world in the eyes of a Yanomamur. And I basically go over all the layers. We have the beginning of time, jaguars being very dangerous people, the very disturbingly sexual story of Yawa and Omawa, and soul, and endocannibalism. they eat themselves. Not exactly. They cremate the dead and mix the bone ashes with water and drink them. Basically, we have shamans and hekura. Shamans are present in pretty much every culture. All right, stratification, social groups, socioeconomic class, and we have caste and race. Basically, open class system and closed class system. Open class systems are where you can do things and you can go from being poor to being wealthy. But there are things you can never change, like your race or your caste. If you're from India, rip, sad. If you're from India and you're in like the lower two classes, the untouchables or the Sudras, then bad for you. You can't change where you're from. Also, we dive a little bit into Calvinism and Christianity and how it aids capitalism in Northern European countries, which is pretty interesting. So race, blah blah, and there's a textbook version, class systems. All right, we're gonna go over it. We don't have that much time. Ethnicities of China. People are like, wow, China is full of Chinese people. That's technically, ethnically speaking, that's not true. Social organization and demography. Another very boring chapter in Yanomami. But, daily activities, people relationships. It's very male dominant, very patriarchal, by the way. And cross cousins, parallel cousins. Because, they're tribes and it's normal to marry cousins in a tribe when there's a lack of population. Not lack of population, but when it's such a contained group of people, All right, political organization gets interesting again. So HG usually does not have any political organization. It has a headman. That's it. Same goes for Horde. There's a headman and there's a big man. A big man is a headman who serves as an agent of redistribution. So, you give me some pigs, I grow them up, and I share them, and you pay me, basically. And then we have office holders for chiefdoms and states. There's a difference between chiefdoms and tribes. There are chiefs in tribes, but those tribes aren't actually tribes then. They're actually chiefdoms, especially in Native American tribes. They're actually chiefdoms in an anthropological sense, but we call them tribes, but actually they're chiefdoms. It's different. Political organization with rebellion, revolution, two different things. Law, egalitarian society, rank society, stratified society, tribal, chiefdom, states. Here's a bit of an example of how tribes become states in Northern Asia. Right, and then here's government structures of ancient and imperial China, which is a thing of its own. It changes all the time, very complex, kind of interesting. And then we have videos on people trying to save Cherokee, and a big man in Papua New Guinea. Alright, and then Yanomami chapter 5, political alliances, trading, feasting. There's an entire subchapter focusing on a particular incident where one village people and another village people get together and have a feast, but there's some tension between them, and that tension broke off and turned into a chest-pounding duel. That was a pretty narrative-heavy chapter, and I really like that, actually. Socialization. Okay, so all the students in this class has to find a journal, find an article among like American Anthropology and RAI and like whatever, and find an article and post it. Basically, I found an article about the Mongolian language and them disappearing in China. Posted it. Pretty cool. Socialization, pretty much an extra lecture. But socialization, enculturation, child rearing, weaning, violence, cultural bound syndrome. which is another pretty interesting thing to get into. All right, religion. I need to turn on air conditioner. There are many types of religions. Actually, three main types: animism, animism, and theism. Animism is the simplest form. Most chiefdoms have it, and it's belief in impersonal force. If you believe in luck, that is also a kind of animism. Animism is a belief in spirit. So now it's getting a little bit more personal. Like, okay, they're actually things. Like, not humans, but things, living things, representing, like, divinity. A belief in gods. So animism, animism, theism. And then I added bits of extra stuff on my notebook, like the major dominations of Christianity, which is, oh my goodness. If I've done enough research on this, I could spend like 12 hours just talking about how Christianity had changed and evolved, because different people interpret Christianity in different ways. So there are like millions of denominations over the course of centuries. So, damn. Anyways, we have religions in East Asia, which is a thing of its own: Taoism, Shintoism, Buddhism, shamanism. Not a religion, but a kind of thing where a shaman is a person who does spiritual work for community. Yep, they have a couple things, couple abilities. One ability is sucking. There's a tube, and they use the tube to suck evil spirits out of someone, and use the same tube to blow evil spirits to another person. Like, haha, I hate you. What? Evil spirit is on you right now. You're gonna die. And another thing that they can do is soul flight, which I did not. I believe I wrote down somewhere. But yeah, there are many things like a shaman does recovery as well, and it recovers lost souls. When you lose your soul, you basically lose pleasure, you feel sadness, you feel very heavy, and you can't get up in the morning. aka depression, but also soul loss, which is actually pretty beautiful. A very beautiful interpretation of depression is the idea that you've lost your soul. So there's that. Consciousness, altered states of consciousness. Soul flight, there we go. Soul flight is essentially when a shaman, the shaman's spirit leaves his body to look for another spirit or soul in the spiritual realm. Yeah, bit of here and there. Religion on the book. Deity, polytheism, monotheism, liminal, rites of passage, totem, prayer, sacrifice, magic. Magic. Pretty interesting. This is actually a photo of magic. People are usually like, oh, magic is so primal. But actually, even in modern day, there are forms of magic. Contagious magic. Divination is used to predict the future. So like, you know, tarot cards, or this one, feng shui board, feng shui. Witchcraft, pretty sad because there are a lot of witchcraft accusations. Religions change, messianic, millenarian, syncretism. Here's a bit of Scientology for you. And then we have a video on the Akha tribe in Laos, or Akha, I don't know. Ritual, rites of passage, rites of reversal, / rites of license, / rites of rebellion, the same thing. Like Halloween, when you can dress up and ask people for candies, which I've never done before. But that is a pretty good example of rite of reversal. Technically, Halloween is a kind of ritual. And here is where I sort of studied a little bit on other kinds of rituals, liturgy, and Book of Enoch, because I'm Enoch, and I gotta learn about Book of Enoch, fallen angels and all that. Apocrypha, which are non-canon books in the Bible. So interesting, am I right? Like, there's so many books that are actually non-canon for some reason, and like, what's up with them? Of course, I can't mention religion without mentioning a biblically accurate angel, aka the Ophanim. Yanomama, warfare, levels of violence, club fights, raids, nomohori, which is the worst kind of violence, which is like Game of Thrones kind of thing, you know, violence, massacre, based on a lie. And there's a specific war. So there's that. There are war chants. And then extra stuff, calendars and time perception. I spent a long time on this because Chinese calendar is so fucking complicated. But it's, yeah. I mean, there's a lunar calendar and there's a solar calendar. There's a lunisolar calendar, and then there are calendars with fixed days. And for a while, I was kind of confused. Like, why does all calendars have like 360 days, despite these cultures not knowing each other yet? Turns out you can naturally create a calendar just by observing the moon and the sun, the moon mostly, because one full moon to another full moon usually takes 30 days, 29 to 30 days. So you can therefore deduce that 1 month has 30 days. And there are these solar terms, and then there are these sexgenary cycles, and there's zodiacs, and I added some other stuff like Aztec calendar, Korean age system, because if you're Korean, you might be 2 years older than you actually are. Heavenly stems and earthly branches. It's so complicated. Why is it so complicated? Gregorian calendar, there are leap years, and leap years, basically. Art, this is the craziest chapter. So we have 4 major types of art: visual art, oral art, music, and dance. Man, I need to have lunch. Visual art, music, dance, everybody knows what that is. Oral arts is an art that where the words are judged. So myth, legend, tales, joke, riddle, proverb, and some other stuff as well. But yeah, the difference between myth and legend is that myth occurs in mythic time, while legend occurs in historical time. So you wouldn't call George Washington chopping down a tree because you wouldn't call that a myth. It may be a legend because it may not be true, but it's not mythical. It sounds like it could have actually happened. And then we have tales. Tales are not true, not at all. Like Three Little Pigs. It's just a story. Jokes are also pretty interesting. Different cultures perceive jokes differently. So there are Cantonese jokes that if I say in English, it's not funny. There are English jokes if I say in Cantonese, it's not funny. And then, oh boy, here we go. We have Chinese arts. I spent so many days, like 3, 4, maybe 5 days on this, just researching the entire scope of arts in Chinese history, which is a lot. We have visual arts, we have comics, temples, architecture. Just architecture is already a lot. Like we have two main kinds of temples in Hong Kong. We have all kinds of temples, the ways they're built, gardens, bridges, moon gates, ponds, poetry. There's so much poetry, and poetry changes from dynasty to dynasty, from era to era. Usually the Western, in Europe, there's a focus on paintings and sculptures. In East Asia, there's a focus on poetry. So the world of poetry in East Asia is absolutely insane. And literature as well. There are just so many changes and movements in poetry and literature. It's like you could spend an entire college course studying poetry alone. That's crazy. But with the 4 classic novels, I added 2 more books to the list because these 2 books are incredibly important. That is Liu Zai and one of the most important books of all times, Call to Arms by Lou Sun, 1923. Yeah, Chinese instruments, Seisu Ngeng, Yekeng, which is Taoism, about Taoism. We have the 24 books on history, and it's absolutely insane. Again, like me right now, I'm talking about history, but 1,000 years ago in China, someone like me is also talking about something that happened a long time ago, also talking about history. And it just goes to show how long the history of China actually is. Like 1,000 years ago is 2021, 1021. What is 1021? That's before Song Dynasty. I think that's Tang Dynasty or something. Someone like me probably is also talking about history. So, just goes to show. Proverbs. There are different kinds of proverbs in Chinese history. There's the Chinese plays, like theater masks, chess. Chess is a whole thing of its own. Chinese mythology, dragons, Chinese legends, more literature, costumes. It's just so much. And look at these portraits, man. Look at these portraits. Even their headpieces are different. The headwear of an emperor and other people changes from dynasty to dynasty. The book, creative expression. It's funny because there's a small bit in the textbook that is about anime and manga, so pretty cultured. Art and politics, museums, body paint, world art, and then we have an entire chapter in the Yanomami book about the lines with Mishi Mishima Buriteri. So there's that. Let's go over it immediately. But yeah, I also added a bit of extra stuff, like history of Western art, Baroque, Rococo, Realism, Impressionism, blah, 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 and some other stuff, some other paintings that I really like. All right, Power and Conquest. Short chapter, but yeah, Power, Conquest, Colonialism, smallpox, measles, they're all brought to the Americas by Europeans. And that killed a lot of people. RIP. Forced labor, pillage, really sad chapter, really. Articles. There's one article about Guatemalan genocide, another article about the anthropology of happiness, and there are some other articles. Pretty interesting. Mongolian conquest, and all the depictions of Mongolian conquest, because it happened all over the world, in Java, aka Indonesia, in Anatolia, aka Turkey, in Levant, aka Palestine, in Poland and Hungary. It's all over the world. Finally, we have arrived in the last chapter, Change, which is also probably one of the most boring chapters in this class, in this course. But yeah, it's about culture change, diffusion, acculturation, invention, applied anthropology, and here are 3 cases of how applied anthropology helps people, but overall, in general, applied anthropology is still not. I watched a 3-hour-long Inuit film called Atanajuat. Alright, and we have oh my god, so boring. This is like LS levels of boring. The textbook chapter of Change. And then finally, we have the last couple chapters of Yanomami ethnography. And it's also the saddest because it's about the change in Yanomami people, where they started having outside contact with Salesian missionaries and Brazilian gold miners and other people, and they radically changed. They're wearing clothes now, they're literate now, they know what is a computer now, they watch the movies Jaws. And there are also a lot of, the Brazilian gold rush is tragic. It killed a lot of people. And of course epidemics, because diseases are always brought from the outside to the inside. So that's really sad, but it's a change being witnessed. And also a really long chapter that I went over yesterday. And then finally, earlier today, I added some human history stuff here. Pretty crazy, pretty complex. And here are the elements of culture. And then that's it for the anthropology course. I'm really tired. I'm going to have lunch. And I have a short film to film later. So, yay. Thanks for watching.